All right. Thank you so much, Larry. And we're getting ready to go live on YouTube with the group doing Absence from Felicity. And I'm looking for Bruce. And I'm thinking he is in Arizona. Uh, and we may not have, because he is on a different daylight savings time. So let us just see. Oh no, here he comes. Here he comes. Yay. He's on the right daylight savings time. All right.
Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning, Bruce.
I know I thought, hey, gee, I've got an extra hour now so I can do other things. Then I thought, oh, I still need to get going.
Yeah, you think you got an extra hour.
Except I filled it up with more than would fit in an hour.
I know, I do that too. Believe me, I'm the the worst at time and but fortunately
Well, we're
I don't
right here on time, so we're good, right?
I'm right here on time. That's right. In time, on time, time. See what's become of
Although
me.
we're really beyond time and space,
Yeah.
dreaming of an exile, of a
Yes.
space-time dream.
Uh, and Ozzy's asking if it's okay to be in the background. Yes, ma'am. You are welcome here. We're all welcome here. All right. So I'm going to I'm instead of looking at my little Kindle, we're gonna look at it on looky there. How about that?
Ooh,
That is a better. So those of you who are watching live on the YouTube will see that I have put up the book Absence from Felicity, which Bruce and I have been reading for a while, and I'm so excited and grateful for this because having been a long time since I've read this the first time, I'm actually blown away now by how this course came about and how Helen's mind actually worked. She is definitely not the flawed character as people would have us believe, and she absolutely was hearing the voice for God for a long time before she ever started scribing the course. And we've been reading about her dreams and letters and things that she wrote before she started scribing the course. So it's pretty amazing. And I'm here with Bruce Rawls and my dear friend for how many years? Oh my gosh,
a goodly number.
a goodly number
Of
of.
course, we're all eternal friends, and we just haven't quite figured that out yet, right? We
Yeah,
just
but I like the specialness of
Yeah, we're all working on that too.
yeah, because Bruce is a pretty prolific guy, and if you follow the Foundation for Inner Peace, you'll see a lot of times he's on their um, webinars, and he's does a lot of other webinars with some great teachers like Jackie Laura Jones or um, uh, I mean, Tam, you name them. If they're anybody in A Course in Miracles community, Bruce has interviewed them, and it's
Oh,
probably
that's that's probably a little bit of an exaggeration.
well
But
in my
but
mind,
I try to connect with people that really get the course, and we enjoy talking with kindred course students, and we're all teaching and learning all the time. So I mean, it's I try not to make any kind of major distinction between teaching and learning, because the course doesn't. It really says, it's there's just one of us here, so whatever we tune into, we're teaching and learning, right? At any given moment.
exactly, and it's you've been doing your work, and we've been doing our work, and so it's awesome that we're together to do this. And Glorian is asking about getting on your email list. Bruce has a wonderful website called acimblog.com, and you will be amazed if you go there.
I was just putting in the chat. Yeah, just go to ACIM blog and sign up on the email list there. And yeah, I sent out one bulletin a month, and the last month was relatively packed because I had like I don't know 5 or 6 different interviews and things to share. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but
So yeah,
usually there's at least a couple of 2 or 3, and so I'm doing another recording tomorrow with the School for A Course in Miracles, and covering a couple of sections in one of the chapters, and that'll be fun. I'm going to dig out my version of Ken's metaphysical chart and have that as my background. So
oh,
that's my plan anyway,
that's awesome.
and use that to talk
Oh,
to. Because I think that's such a, if you haven't seen Ken's chart, it's such a wonderful, um, clear, explanation of the course's non-dual metaphysics. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And having been to a couple of different workshops with Ken, and he absolutely, man, used that that chart all the time, and that blue dot, you got to really really know a lot of things that at the time I was still pretty clueless. I'm amazed to myself now because I go back and I can listen to those workshops on recordings from the foundation, and it's like stunning to me that I was sitting right there in the audience and I didn't I may have heard it and agreed with it and nodded my head and said, "This is great." But man, what was I listening to? I because now I listen to it and it seems so, oh my gosh, this is a call to action, not just not just amazing, beautiful teachings, but he really was like Jesus, just begging us to, do this work and do what he came here to do.
Right. And
So
not out of a sense of desperation, but of, the course's perspective of it's just needless suffering. Why would we want to delay the peace that is in our mind any longer than is necessary? We keep pushing it away, and yet that's really our true nature. And if we just allow that inner guidance, kind of our inner mental GPS that takes us back to peace and shared innocence for everyone and that kind of thing. It's like, well, that's not like just a nice theory. It's actually something we can practice 24/7, right?
exactly, not just a nice theory, it is a reality.
Mm-hmm.
So when I suddenly shifted from thinking this was a nice story to actually, oh, this is really what's happening, it
Mm-hmm.
completely changed everything for me. So um, and I don't even know why I was resistant before. I,
Well, it kind of ties in what you're just saying, and we've been talking ever since we picked up Ken's absence from Felicity again and started rereading it. It's like, well, we know that the all the letters and words and sentences that were there before are what we're reading again, but it's like, it's like a common response is something that has that much depth to it. It's like, when did they rewrite that? It's only because our awareness is we've uncovered and revealed to ourselves more of what's really going on in our minds, and so it's so much more applicable now because the depth to which we have plumbed our minds is greater, and so it makes means more. It just the context is so much more vast compared to when we first got into the course.
yeah, 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 exactly. And I've heard people say they must have just put that in there, or when did Jesus come back and rewrite this?
Mhm.
Uh, oh my gosh. Okay, well, let us get going on our um, reading here. And this is actually where we left off, but if you want to back up some or just start out here,
Why
because
don't we
we were,
start with the bolded quote, and then
okay,
there's only like a paragraph after that would catch us up.
okay, very
Okay.
good.
Okay. So actually, I'll start with a paragraph that Ken explains this. Um, and he said, well, just to preface it, just, the full preface is what Lynn and I are doing is we're reading from Absence from Felicity, the story of Helen Schuckman and her scribing of A Course in Miracles by Kenneth Wapnick, PhD. And this book, we're about, let's see, in the print version, we're in page 148, and it looks like you're page 133 of 492, or 28% in the digital version that Lynn's reading, and which I see on the screen. So, so Ken begins, or resumes, I should say, in the dream, and we're reading what's the second dream? Was it? I'm back up a page or two. Excuse me, letter 3. We're in the third letter that Helen wrote to Bill. Okay, so Ken says, now you have as much context as I can think of at the moment. In the dream, Helen is fearful she will be displaced from her home by this alien presence of Christ's innocence. And yet, in truth, it is her ego that is the alien. So in every page, Ken's putting in some wonderful zingers from the Course's metaphysics, right? As lesson 160 states regarding fear, representing the ego self, I am at home. Fear is the stranger here. And then it goes on to quote this: fear is a stranger to the ways of love. Identify with fear, and you will be a stranger to yourself. And thus, you are unknown to you. What is your self, capital S, self, remains an alien to the part of you which thinks that that is real, but different from yourself. There is a stranger, and then in brackets, i.e. our ego's fear, into brackets, in our midst, who comes from an idea so foreign to the truth, he speaks a different language, looks upon a world truth does not know, and understand what truth regards as senseless. Okay, there we have where we spend a lot of our time. Stranger yet, he does not recognize to whom, in brackets, his self, he comes, and yet maintains his home belongs to him, while he, his capital S self, in brackets, is alien now to who is at home. Who is the stranger? Is it fear or you who is unsuited to the home which God provided for his son? And that is from workbook part 1, lesson 160. And selected portions of the first couple of paragraphs, first few paragraphs. Or page 295 in the edition that Ken's quoting in the print version here. So again, the pronouns, who is the stranger? Well, the only who, the personal self that we think we made up has got to be the stranger. Is it fear or you, the decision maker that can choose against fear, that is unsuited to the home which God provided for his son, right? So any comments on that, Lynn, before we go on?
Yeah, and of course, I'm going to have to say that it reminds me of today's workbook lesson. Because somehow these things all come together. I think it doesn't really matter, actually, what the day is, what the lesson is. When we read these things, we're going to see that it's absolutely reminding or harking to the truth. And the truth is, the fear that's a stranger, the fear that I think I am, is the one who thinks that my brothers are out to get me. But today's lesson, and actually the theme of special relevance, what is the last judgment, is all about just looking and no longer judging what we see, no longer evaluating what we see, and seeing that everything is either love or a call for love, and all that is love. So the judgment and evaluations that we do are what bring about this idea of fear. And when we recognize that everything is here for our own best interests, there really is nothing to fear. And the thing that we fear the most, besides death, which is got its own special little category, but the thing that we fear the most is our brothers. We fear our brothers, that even their breathing is stealing my oxygen. They're they're drinking or swimming in the ocean is stealing my water. When we look at our brothers, um, and evaluate them according to the ego, they are actually um, not helpful to me and not here for me. And if they are here for me, it's because there's some kind of a trick going on, and I better look out because they're going to get me. That's how the ego sees everything. So today's lesson is lesson 315. All gifts my brother give belong to me. And he's saying, each day 1,000 treasures come to me with every passing moment. I am blessed with gifts throughout the day in value far beyond all things of which I can conceive. A brother smiles upon another, and my heart is gladdened. Someone speaks a word of gratitude or mercy, and my mind receives this gift and takes it as its own. And everyone who finds the way to God becomes my savior, pointing out the way to me and giving me his certainty that what he learned is surely mine as well. So he's really talking about, these things that we fear, this attack that we imagine is happening, is it's just the opposite, that we're being blessed by our brothers in all things. And even, my most evil, nefarious brother who is out to get me is still grateful to, um, the something is still loving, is still looking for God in everything. And that's all I have to remember. These are not my enemies, these are my friends, and they're here for my best interest. And all I need to do is recognize that, whatever they're doing, they may think that they're doing something to be protective or defensive, but really all they're doing is love, and they just don't understand how love works. And they think that love can be attack. So we can love, Hamas, and we can attack Hamas because we think it's loving to do so. Um, and Hamas can attack us because they think it's loving to do so. They're not trying to be evil, they're trying to express love in the way that they know. And in the way that they know is the way of the ego and can never express love. So, that's what we have to understand. That fear is the stranger. It's fear is the thing that is keeping us from joining in this perfect love of what we are. And at this home where I am, fear is the stranger here. And as long as I remember that, when fear comes up, I can just say, I trust my brothers who are one with me, or, God's will for me is perfect happiness, or whatever it is that I want to say. All the truths that come up will answer every question about fear. Anyway, that's what I have to say about that.
Well, like you said, everything is either a call for love or an expression of it, and that's really simplifies everything, doesn't it? I mean, then from that perspective, not the all-inclusive identity that we all share becomes something that makes sense, and then the course's logic kicks in. It's like, well, that's the only way we're ever going to have peace if there's is a pure non-dual identity and experience, because anything that is divided, that makes separation real. Anytime there's a we and a they, a subject and an object, a self and a not self, that's what the course would define as hell. And that's the only way out of that is to trust Holy Spirit, which is that part of our mind that rejects the ego's um, propaganda machine. It's ever available software that we keep choosing instead of sanity. That its operating system and all of its applications lead us to the illogical conclusion that separation is real. And it made up a whole world just to try to prove that to us. And we call that world space-time and matter and energy and specifics and specialness and that's really what this course refers to as sickness, is the idea that we could be possibly separate from each other or from our creator. And if there's just one thing, if it's a pure non-dual reality, then there's no opportunity for warfare or even minor disagreements to occur, because anything that represents that dualistic dream is therefore illusory, and that's not our everyday experience. So we need to apply the course. We need to look at all the specifics that we made up, and we need every gift that my brother gives us, which is every specific situation that we're seem to be confronted with that seems to be coming from outside our mind, to bring it back to our mind, by applying workbook lesson 5. I'm never upset for the reason I think. It's not anything that the world or any person or animal or plant or mineral, vegetable, any there's nothing out there in the world, from the course's perspective, because it's a mental universe, and it's a very hermetic and Platonic philosophy that the course is teaching, that all is mind, and everything that we see in the world is a symbol of a symbol. So, but that's where our way out, and trusting the Holy Spirit to guide us through that process of examining our mind is our way out of hell. I'm going to refer to that in my little talk tomorrow, on trusting Holy Spirit, because in I think it's section 29 in the manual, where it says, trusting the Holy Spirit is not only a good idea because of our own shortcomings, it's literally the way out of our own self-made hell, right? Paraphrased a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally though.
Yeah, yeah,
It-
yeah. Oh,
it-
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It really is. Our all-inclusive identity, put another way, is the only thing that's really going to get us out of the horrific dream, the nightmare of duality that seems to be, um, the cause of our lack of peace. But it's really just a choice in the mind. That whole thought system is made up, so we can choose against it as we practice the course's forgiveness with every little specific that seems to cross our path. And so that's why, every gift that my brother gives, whether my brother is an animate or an inanimate thing, whether my brother could be a weather condition, my brother could be an economic update on the news, my brother could be a bodily condition, my brother could be anything that anyone or anything in the world seems to be bringing to my attention. That's my classroom at any given moment. If not at perfect peace with it, that's my classroom, right?
exactly. And then everything is something to be grateful for.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Everything is now, oh my gosh, we are so lucky. I am so happy. And honestly, when I look at it that way, I am so happy, and I do feel so lucky and blessed, blessed,
Mm-hmm.
blessed, grateful, 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 because here it is right in front of me, the gift that I never even knew I wanted, but here it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. And we don't have to build our identity or fabricate it from scratch. That's what we've covered over. So we just have to undo the blocks to the awareness of it, as the course says, right?
Exactly, exactly. And that's what we're doing, and these lessons every day and these reminders every day, these interviews every day, these listening to, these teachers that really understand the Course of Miracles. It really does do, solidify in our minds the truth and reality of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And
So
and it's an undo process rather than a doing process.
that's right.
I,
It's
I
all
had I
on.
had fun the other day. I made up. I was thinking about I looked up how many times the word undo appears in the course, and it's 105 times. That's a lot. And so I made it. I put in the chat a little link to a T-shirt I made that's got a QR code. So if anybody needs a T-shirt, little shameless promotion here. I mean, I make a couple of bucks, I think, on each t-shirt, but anyway, if on Zazzle.com, I made a shirt that has a giant QR code, and it just has the letters UNDO in the middle for undo. But if you forget that the course is really talking not about doing things, it's about undoing things. Um, you can just take your phone and scan the QR code on that shirt, and it'll take you right to all 105 instances of the word undo in the course.
Oh my God, that's brilliant, Bruce. I love it. I love
Yeah,
it. Thank
yeah,
you. And
it was just kind of
that's
fun.
available on your TikTok shop. No, that's available on your website, right?
Yeah, well, I haven't put it on the website yet. I was going to write a little post about it, but I just put the link to the action directly to the shirt if anybody's interested. But you can use the QR code, if you want to take a screen snap of that
Great,
and do
great.
it that way. That works too. But
All right. Well, I'm going to
yeah.
copy that and put
Or
that.
or another simple way is just go to acim.org/ACIM, click the search icon, and type in undo, UNDO, and hit return, and there you'll find them, all 105 instances of the word
Wow.
undo. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. So let's see. Did you read the
I think I got up to the bottom of the workbook quote. So now I think we're on thus Helen. Yeah.
okay, you want me to read?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. So who is the stranger here? Thus Helen, in characteristic ego fashion, has turned reality upside down. The innocence of Christ herself becomes the alien threatening to dispossess her, and is described as wicked. However, in reality, it is the alien ego self that believes it has dispossessed God and his son. And so that is the dream in the letter that Helen was just writing, which we will not go back into because that'll start a whole nother conversation that we had last week. So you can go back and look at last week's recording and you'll see it. All right. So Ken continues. I might mention too that one of Helen's favorite books was Chesterton's The Man Who Was Thursday. Now, I never heard of this book, and I read this before, and I should have looked that book up, but I didn't. So now that's my next goal, is to find this Man Who Was Thursday book.
I'm going to have to find it too, because I remember hearing about it in one of Ken Wepnick's talks, and I found it online, but I forgot to order. But I'm going to see if our local library has it too. See if
Yeah,
that might
it
be,
might be.
because it's been around a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an old book. But it sounds interesting. For the better part of this novel, readers are led to believe that they are in the midst of a clever spy story, only to discover that the conspirators, each of whom is given a code name of the days of the week, are really in the service of Jesus. Sunday is Jesus's code name. The plan calls for them insidiously to, quote, take over, unquote, the world. Wow, that has got to be interesting. So Helen's letter now continues with another important theme. And this is Helen's letter now continuing. The thing I did not want to talk to you about yet was a lifelong fear of being deserted, first by my mother and later by Jonathan, in brackets, Louis, that's her husband. Jonathan is singularly unlikely to desert me, and in parentheses, his constancy is among his many virtues, most of which I do not yet really appreciate, into parentheses. But I was always afraid he would die and leave me. I can't stand the idea of being alone, and always felt that I would commit suicide rather than face solitude. I am still very uncomfortable about the whole subject. I note, I note. Anyway, I realize that this is one area in which, quote, thy will be done, unquote, does not hold for me. Here it's going to be my way, even if I have to kill myself. Wow. Have I ever thought that to myself? The strange or perhaps, quote, unquote, bad thing is a better word. It is that in his capacity as, quote, unquote, company for me, I never really considered Jonathan, and perhaps not my mother either, as a person in his own right. I have kidded about this by saying, quote, I have to protect my investment, which is merely the part of foresight and intelligence, unquote. The word, quote, investment, which I really have used in this connection, is much more applicable to a thing than to a person, of course. And yet that's somehow the way I feel about it. It's mine, and I insist on hanging on to it. I do not care if it's good for Jonathan or not, or even if it's really good for me. I need this, and I have devoted practically my whole life to protecting it. You'd be surprised how many weird things I did to protect my mother, except to be nice to her. Oh my goodness. Um, let's see. Is this now Ken? Okay, no, this is
There's
still her.
still more for.
Okay. One could not ask for a more specific description of the terrible nature of special relationships, wherein we seek out in others only what is necessary for our own salvation, as we understand it to be. The other person is never really seen as he or she really is, as Christ, but only as a shadow. I guess this is Ken speaking here, but only as a shadow drawn from our past, based upon our needs and expectations. One of Helen's most painful fears, dating back to her childhood, was of being alone and deserted. And so others, notably her mother, Louis, Bill, and I, served her ego only by being there for her. And I believe me, I can relate to this completely personally. That the whole idea that being abandoned uh, by my mother, my stepfather, my partners, my real father, my friends, my brothers and sister, my brother and sisters, all of that. I experienced uh, vast examples of abandonment as a child, and so I can understand how Helen could have had this same feeling. And after reading about her childhood, it makes a lot of sense because she was alone much of the time. She was apparently abandoned by her parents. She was abandoned by her brother. She was abandoned by nannies who came and went. She was abandoned by so many things that when she calls it her investment, I relate to that completely because that's what happens. But we get a relationship, we invest in that relationship, we give that person something. Or if it's a relationship with a thing, a house, a car, a pet, a plant, whatever it is that we think belongs to us, we invest in it by focusing on it, by giving it whatever we think it, whatever it seems to need or want. And all those things seem like a sacrifice to us, for the most part. And the sacrifice is, this is what I have to give in order to get what I need. And so I think this is, this whole description that Helen has about her relationship with the world is really, as Ken says, a description of the terrible nature of special relationships, um, wherein we seek out in others only what is necessary for our own salvation, as we understand it to be.
Yep, pretty stark, banal, and horrific description of everyone's ego, but that's really what's going on. We're like little cannibalizing Pac-Man critters on the video game in our mind of duality, and we don't care who gets consumed in the process of meeting our needs, but it's really just the result. And the attacks that seem to come at us are really just a reflection of our original attack, which is basically only seems to be happening because we made up a thought system of sin, guilt, and fear, and the only way to deal with that as an ego is to project it out, because it's such an intolerable, unbearable thought that we shattered perfect oneness, which of course is an impossible crime, but because we think we pulled it off, we immediately had the Big Bang, probably literally physically, as a reflection of the tiny mad idea in our mind that said, I can't deal with this horrible feeling of abandonment, separation, and alienation that is really at the core of the ego's misunderstanding. And so I've got to do something to fix that. And so, we made up a whole world to hide from that horrific guilt. And as Ken Wapnick describes it, it's a maladaptive solution to a non-existent problem. But that's not our usual experience. So we need to look at how um, how maladaptive that solution really is by saying that those investments that we've made, is ugly and awful as they are when we really look at them, haven't hurt anyone because our real identity has never been compromised, ours or anyone else's, because ours is everyone else's, and the separation never happened, right?
Yeah, I mean, really honestly, just even reading these things right now uh,
Mm-hmm.
are such great pointers to the real problem. And
Yeah, yeah. And Kellen's comments and Ken's reply as well, just like, wow, this investment, if we just kind of look at how much we're invested in the ego and buying its propaganda, and it's almost like, if you um, what's a dollar cost averaging? Is that, but we're sort of doing that with, that long-term investment where we take seconds, thousands of in seconds every day. Was it 86,000 minutes? Whatever, how many seconds or minutes a day, something like that. Anyway, there's just an enormous amount of time that we spend every day investing in the dualistic dream, and then we wonder why we're not at peace. And that's what the Course gently, um, patiently, but firmly and consistently keeps reminding us that there's nothing in the world that is going to make us happy the way we've set it up, um, because everything is destined to fail, and we've basically invested in a failing operation, with which of course we call ego.
yeah, and so
But fortunately, the one investment that we couldn't get rid of, we couldn't sell, destroy, or give away. Well, we, we actually we can't get rid of it. Um, is our real identity, but actually, then I'm going to correct myself. The way to get it back to our awareness, from where we think we've lost it, um, is to literally to give it away by seeing the innocence in everyone else, and systematically and completely, ultimately undoing the whole ego thought system of duality, of separation, of alienation and isolation and abandonment.
yeah, it's just recognizing it never happened, which is
Mm-hmm.
almost impossible for the ego. The ego cannot recognize that it never happened because
Right.
it seems so real.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's that's the whole focus of the course, really,
Mm-hmm.
is to get us over that seeming reality and recognize the truth of what's really happening. So I love this. This book is really hitting
Yeah.
home.
Yeah. That paragraph that Ken just had is, I think, worth rereading. Should I reread that and go from there?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, because I think he just really nails it here. It says, one could not ask for a more specific description of the terrible nature of special relationships, wherein we seek out in others only what is necessary for our own salvation, the what's in it for me paradigm, as we understand it to be. The other person is never really seen as he or she really is as Christ, but only as a shadow drawn from our past based on our needs and expectations. One of Helen's most painful fears, dating back to her childhood, was of being alone and deserted. And so others, notably her mother, Louis, Bill, and I, served her ego only by being there for her. And that's why in some of Ken's latter workshops, one of the last ones he did, the community of love, he talks about making it about the other person. Not that there really is another person, but when we include everyone as our brotherhood, and that brotherhood is in our mind, and everyone is equally important and infinitely important, and infinitely and equally innocent, um, then we undo the separation, just one seeming person at a time, right? But that's all it takes, because it's a holographic process. Each seeming specific special relationship we forgive ourselves for making up, we're healing our whole mind, which includes everyone else's whole mind, because it's already healed. So, so and we can't really grok how that works, and we don't need to, and we're not asked to. In fact, it's encouraged that we just kind of focus on our own classroom until we realize that there really is just one classroom, and then we're the only one that's left that is playing hooky, and everyone's already waiting for us, happily, patiently waiting for us to get it. That those their gifts have been delivered long ago, and we just need to open them all.
Exactly, exactly. So they don't feel guilty because we're tarrying, because there is no time. And as Jesus tells us, it delay in eternity is impossible, but delay in time is tragic.
Right.
Because we're experiencing a world of grief and
Yeah.
upset and sorrow because we choose to play here.
Right. There's no real tragedy in eternity, but it's needless suffering. And there's several places in the Course, one of which I'm going to read tomorrow morning. I guess if you only knew kind of phrasing, as and because the Course basically says, we can't really understand what perfect peace is at this point, but we get little glimmers and shadows of and little cracks through the wall where the light gets in occasionally, and we say, oh wow, I was not fighting myself for wow 7 or 8 seconds there. Until I started worrying about what was going to happen next to this dream figure kind of thing. But if we can just kind of watch that whole process and realize, it's always there waiting for us, the piece that we thought we left and thought we trashed. But
Yeah.
nope, yeah.
What's really beautiful too is that what of course that's what I came to recognize, so it's really beautiful. I'm sorry.
Well, that's just a good example how we think, it's what's in it for me, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I've come to really understand is anytime I feel anxious, I recognize that I'm thinking either about the future or the past.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking, oh, what am I'm gonna have to go and I'm gonna go babysit my kids tomorrow, my grandkids, how am I gonna get over there? What am I gonna do? Well, the Holy Spirit just tells me, stop it. You're not there. You're here. There will take care of itself. Here is taking care of itself, and you just have to be here and stop thinking about, trying to plan for a future, or, stop thinking about anything other than what's happening right here and now, because it's the only thing that you have any input into whatsoever. And just not living in the future or the past has freed me up so much in my anxiety, because I don't have to worry about what I'm going to do next week or how I'm going to get to here or there or any of those things. That will happen or not, and I don't have any input or any interest in it either. All I can do is right now be here
Hmm.
and allow the Holy Spirit to inform me about and I'm in peace, and I'm actually happy when I'm here. And they've proven that they've done studies and not to beleaguer things here, because I know we're running through our time, but there's actually studies where they gave everybody like an Apple Watch or something. And they said, anytime you start feeling anxiety or whatever, click on here and then, state what it is that you were thinking about that caused that. And what they discovered is that every time people are feeling anxious is because they're thinking about the future or the past, and
Hmm.
they're not attending to what's here now. As long as people are attending to what's here now, they are, satisfied, happy, and even actually joyful. But when they start wandering into the past or the future, they become agitated. And it is because you have no effect on the past or the future. So the ego's like, how am I going to manage, when the ego has nothing to say about it and doesn't need to manage it? Of course, that's not what the scientific study said. The scientific study just said, if you're thinking about anything other than what you're doing right now, you're going to be upset and agitated.
Lynn, as you're describing this scientific study, I was picturing like an underground bunker with thousands of screens and technicians watching all these thoughts coming in from the watches and cell phones of of the people in this experiment, and they're streaming down like the little green letters on the matrix, and then Eckhart Tolle is up on a raised platform overlooking this whole scene and saying, see, I told you so. Just the image I got.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's it.
It's all in the now. It's all in the now.
It's all in the now, but statistically, I mean, that's the thing. I love statistics. I'm just a nut over statistics, and because I think it's so cool how you can put everything into a number and get a picture out of it.
And some of the statistics are really simple too, like the one about it's the probability is incredibly high that if your parents didn't have children, you won't either. You know,
Yeah,
that's a statistic that I find really helpful, you know.
yeah, those are yeah, that makes total sense, and I can chart and graph that for you.
Good.
I can extrapolate it.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Oh my God, you're hilarious.
Do you want
Okay,
to continue on with the
sure. You want me to read?
Helen's commentary? Sure, go for it.
Okay, so Helen's discussion continues, focusing first on Louis, Jonathan, and then on an important visit to his mother. Um, let's see, to return from the past to the recent bus ride. Is that right? Okay. I
Mhm.
thought that Jonathan, oh, this is Helen. Okay. To return from the past to the recent bus ride, I thought, said Helen, that Jonathan was going to die. I thought he'd come as far as he could this time and just wasn't going to make it. So he was ready to give up and go soon. Then I suddenly thought, no, that's not right yet. He'll be very sick, but he won't die unless I want him to. Right, he's the author of her universe. I could yet save him if I really wanted to, and really help him and become a self-directed to help him become a self-directed person if I tried. And I suddenly wanted to try. So it seemed to me that he was very ill and in the hospital, and somehow I managed to pull him through. The way I did it was to love him. Then I looked at him. He was sleeping at the time, which is probably just as well. This is stunning. I also loved everybody on the bus for a little while, too. I looked at Jonathan and thought he really can make it this time and doesn't have to wait. It's late, but aren't we all? He's got real possibilities, and if I help him, and he, in parens, and you too, for rather surprising reasons, which come next, into parens, he will develop determination and strength right here and now and won't be lost anymore. The quote, holy alliance, unquote, for this incarnation seems to be a shifting one, but it is holy in its way. When it first occurred to me, and then in parens, the funniest things come to me in meditation. It worries me a little, but I guess it's all right. Into parens. Okay, when it first occurred to me that my purpose this time is to make a holy alliance, I thought first of one with you. But this time I thought maybe Jonathan must be included. Wow, this is just stunning, all right? I'm just blown away by these thoughts that she's having.
Mhm.
The weather, by and large, was not good at Asbury Park, New Jersey, in brackets. So on Friday, I suggested we go to Long Branch and see Jonathan's mother and get it over with. I know that feeling. Jonathan was glad because I have always sort of been sort of rotten by omission to his mother, and this has upset him. He said I didn't have to go and he would, quote unquote, cover up for me, although he admitted she'd love to see me. She is ridiculously proud of me, and I do know that my visiting her would represent something very important to her, even though I think her reasons are wrong. But why should I be concerned with more than giving an old woman some pleasure on whatever her terms may be? Wow. So I decided to go.
Mm.
And then I had a real fit. I went upstairs to get a tranquilizer. Give me my Valium.
She had Yule Gibbons shoot a dart into her.
Yeah, exactly. I'd have taken more than one, but I couldn't have any more. I didn't have any more. She would have taken more than one tranquilizer. Oh, and all the way there, I was literally trembling. Jonathan was very nice and even quite sympathetic about it. He made things as easy for me as possible and even asked the cab driver to wait, which is very unlike Jonathan. And then in parens, as it happened, the driver didn't charge for waiting, but Jonathan gave him a big tip, which is also unlike Jonathan. He has a thing about tipping, even though he's very generous otherwise. End of parens there. Uh, so when we got to mother's place, everything turned out very well. The lawn was lovely, and if the driver had not been waiting, I would have been glad to stay a while. Mother introduced me proudly to a lot of people, but there was time to sit in the sun, time just to sit in the sun, and it was very pretty and peaceful. I was glad to see Mother, too. Even if her reasons are warped, there aren't many people left, in Prince, if there ever were, uh, who would want to see me so much. You'd think have been grateful for that before, wouldn't you? Especially me with this intense need to be wanted. And there she was all the time wanting me to come, and I wouldn't. A mistake. I'm glad I had a chance to make it up a little, and I wish I could with my own mother. I once didn't see her or father for about 2 years. Something to do with analysis, I think. I couldn't stay in the same room with her, but I did call her and she came down to visit before she died. And I remember telling her that I really did love her and I was glad she'd come. Oh wow. This whole
Mm.
discussion of the mother situation, the feeling unworthy of the love that the mother was giving, feeling guilty for, I think she didn't feel like all the hoopla that Louis's mother thought about her was she didn't trust her. She thought I think she just I know I've done this myself in the past, just thought somebody was an idiot because they thought I was great, because I thought I was so bad. And I think she just it's her warped vision of herself and her warped understanding of what love really is and how love really works. But I mean, you can see all the conflicts in just this little description here. I
Mhm.
can relate to so much of it, and I think other people probably could too.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think family and in-laws and are that are hugely important classrooms. In fact, Ken wrote a book, Parents and Children, Our Most Difficult Classroom. It probably doesn't always have to be the most difficult, but it's certainly, a stereotypical one, just because, those are where we start with, literally from day one of the birth of our bodies. And so and I was thinking about in-laws, what does that relate to? Well, it's like, the idea of a marriage and then family that's added because of that, sort of represents this is a conscious choice to be connected to, parts of oneself, and so where do we oftentimes have resistance, like the old bumper sticker, when out in-laws are outlaws, only outlaws will have in-laws or something like that anyway. But because obviously we want certain things, but we don't want others, and so a lot of times the in-laws represent parts of ourselves that it comes with a package deal, of if do you accept this family or do you just want one part of it, kind of thing. But the whole ego thought system is one big family, and if we accept one idea of the ego, we get the whole package. I think that's kind of how it works, isn't it? I mean, that's if we recognize that there's any part of the censorship that we leave out, really becomes an alienation process that we're complicit in. And if we can just notice that, I think that's why I was listening to one of Ken's audios a day or two ago, and I was out for a walk, and he was saying, that's the whole idea of excluding specific people is probably the most difficult um, part of the course. So there's two things that he said that were the most difficult: family, and then anyone that is left out of the perfect oneness, right? The
Well,
idea of total inclusion, so it's really saying the same thing, actually.
it
Yes.
is the same thing
Yeah.
because, in reality, if you look at the reality of what we are, everybody is our family. And
Hmm.
we are all related. I mean, there's through not just through, joining as humans, but because genetically, um, we've all intermixed and intermingled. I look at my genealogy. I got involved in that my heritage business and
Yeah.
uh, or Family Search, which is just an amazing website. And it's put on after I found out that I had all these. My father, my biological father, was a part of a big extended Mormon family, and so I now have a big extended Mormon family. And it turns out that the Mormon church is very interested in genealogy.
Oh yeah, very big time. Yeah,
And
my brother used to go there all the time and do research, and he claims to have taken our family tree back to Adam and Eve, but I have my doubts. So.
well, I don't know if they kept records back then. So I mean,
Anyway,
seriously,
yeah.
but my family tree actually goes all the way to not King Arthur because he didn't have any children, but his father, Uther Pendragon, is one of my great, 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 and probably yours too, and anybody else who was ever born in or has English or Irish or Scottish heritage.
Yeah, that applies
We're
probably
all
a lot of people.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
And even my great 10th great grandfather came over on the Mayflower. They say my great 10th great grandfather, they forgot to mention my 10th great grandmother also, who was his wife. I know who I wouldn't be here if it weren't for. But because if my parents didn't have any children, uh I probably won't either. Um,
It's a statistical fact.
it
Yeah.
is a statistical fact. But what I'm saying is, if we really, really thought about it, we would recognize the interrelationship between us and that we are all related.
Mhm.
Even, the most notorious criminals or the greatest heroes were somehow or the other connected to us. And so you can't just,
Mhm.
there's no difference between my mother and your mother. They're probably
True.
cousins. Like that.
We're all connected. We're all connected. So speaking of genealogy and tracing one's roots, I attended a virtual high school 50th high school reunion a summer or so ago, and I guess it's been a couple of summers now. And one of the people that attended online, we had this extended after party, if you will. After the phone was passed around, the 70 or 80 people that were there in person, but there was a handful of us that couldn't attend for what various reasons, and that was one of those. So a dear friend of mine who literally lived right on a corner from me growing up in Livermore, California. Um, he and I got to chatting and about family and whatnot. And he said, "Yeah, I did a little research, and after doing so, the genetic analysis and all that kind of stuff, the DNA." He says, "I discovered that um, my alleged father really, because he worked at Lawrence Livermore Lab and was rendered impotent from being at the Nevada test site with all the radiation. Apparently, he and my friend's." Mother had decided to go the test tube baby route, and so he found out that he had 50 or 60 siblings, all with the same father that was unknown but biologically identical. And so he started contact. I guess he contacted about 30 or 40 of them and said, "Hey, we're actually step half brothers or step brother, whatever they call that. All those relationship terms,
Brothers, yeah.
half brothers, yeah, and half siblings, yeah, and it's like, wow, that's kind of wild, but the take home is that we're so amazed when we realize that we're really all siblings, and I like the word kin because kinfolk is basically anyone that you recognize as having the same interest. Well, we all have the same interest. We're all kinfolk here, right? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We are kindred. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. I love that. Well, our time is almost up, and
It
I'm
is.
gonna
It is. So I'm going to put a little line right after, right before Helen's visit to her mother-in-law, and we can pick up there next week.
Yeah, because I think this is, I'm just kind of reading ahead. I'm sure other people are who are looking at the YouTube are kind of reading ahead too, where she's going to talk about a situation with her own mother. And I'm just like blown away again. It's amazing to me
Yeah. Yeah.
how, this character of Helen was really forged in um just the soup of desire and indifference and fear and love. And I mean, it's just amazing that she is the person that she is. And I'm just
Yeah.
so very grateful for her and so grateful for all of it. So,
And you,
um,
we're grateful for you.
yes, yes, yes. Gratitude, gratitude. So thank you so much, Bruce Rawls. And
And thanks, Lynn Johnson, and looking forward
anything
to our
else
next
coming up for
conversation.
you? You mentioned something tomorrow with
Oh,
uh
this is with through the School for Course in Miracles, which I always highly recommend. It's just a great program with classes almost every day of the week. And for the last couple of months, they've had introductory classes in Spanish by some of the students who are fluent Spanish speakers, which is
wow,
pretty
and
cool.
that is virtual
It's all online. Yeah, yeah,
online, yeah.
yeah.
So
Occasionally,
so
there's actually going to be a Labor Day conference get together in um, Colorado Springs up at the monastery up there, and
ooh, yay.
so that'll be fun. So I'll probably. Oh, I've already signed up to be there,
That's
so
right.
that'll. Yeah,
Whoa.
that'll be fun.
All
Yeah,
right, very good.
and
All
I'll be
right.
joining the morning session in progress as of about a minute ago. As soon as I hang up here.
All right. Thank you so much, Bruce Rawls. I love you, brother.